This conference will now be recorded.
Hello and good morning to you all. In today's class, we are going to discuss about the inheritance, what actually the inheritance is and where we can use it. So inheritance is basically the process of inheriting the features of one class into another. And through inheritance, we can, as its definition suggests, we can inherit the properties or methods of one class into the another class. The class whose properties you inherit is called the superclass, and the class that is inheriting the properties is called subclass. So where we should use inheritance? So basically inheritance allows us to do reusability in Java source coding. For example, if we want to implement the hierarchy of the jobs that the persons are doing in the organization, then we can have one class, and that class may represent the persons. So this is the one class that is representing a person. So I'm getting P for it. So a person will have some attributes like name of the person, contact number, date of birth, and so on. And this class is basically implementing the basic features of a person. If we want to implement some other class, let's say assistant professor in Chitkara University. So the assistant professors will basically be persons but will have some extra features. So this I am representing with the symbol E. So here the P is our base class, or it's called superclass, and E that we inherited from P is called subclass. So this subclass will inherit all the features of the person. There is another example for this. If let's say we want to represent a class named box, I'm going to represent it with the alphabet B. So B is a box class, as we discussed in the previous chapter. The box class will have some attributes like length, breadth, and height of the box. And later we want to make another class, a box class. In that class we want to add some more features. Let's say this is the weighted box, so we want to add weight to the box. So the initial class, this B, is the superclass, and this one, weighted box, is your subclass. So weighted box will inherit all the features of the box, and it will add some features of its own, some specialized features we can say. For in this case, we can say the weight of the box is a special feature that we can add over here. So this basic class or the superclass basically implements generalization, where we generalize the object And using the inheritance, we create specialized classes. So this implements the specialization, we can say. So in case of Java, some types of inheritance are supported. The first category is the single inheritance, where there will be one subclass and it will have one superclass. So this is the case of single inheritance. Then we can have multi-level inheritance, where a class, let's say class A, from this class will inherit another class. Let's say the class B. This is the class A, and then we have class B, and from class B will inherit another class. So such a structure where a derived class, or we can say a subclass, this B, becomes the superclass for the another class C over here, and such type of inheritance is called multi-level inheritance. Then the next we can have hierarchical inheritance. Hierarchical inheritance can be a structure like this. This is another class. We can say tree type structure. So this is an example of hierarchical inheritance. So let's start with the example of inheritance. So this is the first example of inheritance. In this case, in this example, we have one superclass named A, and in this superclass, there are two instance variables, I and j, are the attributes of the class, and there is one method. We have named it show ij. So this method is basically displaying the values of instance variable I and j. When it will be called, it will display the values of the instance variable I and j. Then this is base class. If you want to inherit this base class, then you have to follow this syntax. So first you will write class and then subclass name. So B is the subclass, and after that we will write the keyword extends, and then the superclass name. So A is the superclass, and we are inheriting the superclass A into the class B. So, and in the subclass we will add some other features. For example, over here we are adding one more feature K, and there are two methods in this class. So show K and sum is the are the two methods. So if you perform inheritance, all the public members or all the default members, because here we haven't mentioned the access specifier for I and j, and also not for the show ij method. So these members have default access. So if you inherit a class, the members of the superclass are inherited into the subclass if the members are having default access or public access. So after the inheritance, these two members I and j will be inherited into the class B. So if you create the instance of class B, the B class instance will have three members I, j and k, and this subclass will have three methods, two of its own, and one will get inherited from the superclass, that is show ij. So if you create the object of the subclass B that we are doing in the next slide. So here we are creating the object of the A class, that is a superclass. So I'm going to represent it here diagrammatically. So this is your superclass and it has two members, I and J. This member is, let's say, I, and this one is the J member. So when the constructor will be called, these two members will get initialized to 0 automatically. Right? Instance, because these are of type integer, and its reference is A. This object is having reference A. Then the next line will create another object B. The reference reference to that object will be B. So this is the I member. Its value will be initialized to 0 automatically, and this is also 0, and its reference is B. After that, this is the important point, we are using uh, super OB. Sorry, this is the object. Here is the object name because A is the class name. So this object name is basically super OB. So this object is super OB. This one, its not name is not A because the object name is super OB here, and this one is sub OB, subclass object. So this is a subclass object. So this is sub OB according to our program. So if you write over here super ob.j, so this is your super OB and it has a member J. And if you are creating the subclass, this again I'm going to write here. Let me clear this because there is some issue with it. Let me clear this first. Let me plot this diagram again because there was some issue. So this is the OB superclass object, and this is having two members I and J, and its reference name is super OB. So I'm going to write over here with the mouse, so bear with the handwriting. So this is super OB and it will have two members I and J according to the class we discussed here. These two are the members I and J. If you create the subclass object, this is subclass object. So here I committed the mistake in the previous diagram. It will have all the members of its base class. So these are the base class members because I and J are of default access there. So these two members will get inherited into the subclass, and the subclass is adding one member instance variable of its own. So this is the instance variable that the subclass has added. So this basically, this diagram shows the subclass object and its reference is sub OB. So this is sub OB, the reference of the subclass object. So because I and J are inherited into the subclass, so you can access them directly, I and J, with the subclass object. So here what we are doing, we are using sub ob.I is equal to 10. So this value will change from 0 to 10. And the next line will assign super ob.j to 20. So this will change to 20. And after that, the next line will print this message, contents of super ob. So we are calling show ij method with the super ob object. So this is the object of the superclass, and we are calling show ij method. So this will print the value of I and j as we have seen in the previous slide. So this is the previous slide. It will give you I and j, the value of I that is 10 and the value of j that is 20. So you will get I and value of I and j on your screen. Then this will break the line as we discussed earlier. The next, these 3-4 lines are important. So see here, with the object of the subclass, we are accessing the superclass variable I, because the subclass has inherited the attributes of the or instance variables and instance methods of the superclass. So you can directly access the members of the superclass using the subclass object. So here this is subclass object, and we are using it to access the superclass members. So this will set I to 7. Earlier it will be 0, because as we discussed earlier, when we create the object, all the integer members of the object will get initialized to 0 automatically. So this will change from 0 to 7. This sub ob dot j will set the j member of the subclass object to 8, and the next line will set the k member of the subclass object to 9. So this is a scenario. So this diagram shows that if you inherit the features of one class into the another class, then the superclass attributes gets inherited into the subclass, and after that we are calling the show ij method. If you look at the previous slide again, this show ij is the superclass method, and when it is this class it is inherited, you can access the superclass method through the subclass object as well. So here we are accessing the superclass method show ij with the subclass object. So it will call this, and when this will be called, it will print I and j of the subclass object. So I and j of subclass object are 7 and 8. So you will get 7 and 8 with this, and then this subclass object is calling its own class method. So this is the method of the subclass show k, and it will print the value of k, and you will get 9 on your monitor screen with this. And then this print ln will break the line, and the next line will show you the sum of I, j and k in SOB is, it's calling the sum method. So sum method is here. I'm going to show you in the subclass. In the subclass method, again we are using I, j and k. So this also indicates that these members, the instance variables, are inherited into the subclass. So the superclass instance variables can be used directly into the subclass methods. So this will find I, j and k sum. So after finding I, j and k sum, it will return the result or print the result, in fact. So I plus j plus k is 7 plus 8 plus 9. So this you will get 24, that will get printed on the screen. So the crux of this problem is, I repeat, whenever you perform the single inheritance, the first important point is the syntax, how you can do inheritance. So for that, if you want to create a subclass, then you will use this keyword class, then class name. After that, use the extends keyword and then write the superclass name. This is the first point from the syntax point of view. And after that, the next important point is, if you inherit a class from a superclass, all the members that are having default access or public access becomes the members of the subclass, or we can say those will be directly accessible from the methods of the subclass, or the superclass methods or instance variables can be directly accessible from the subclass object, as we have discussed in this slide. So there are more examples to come, so don't worry, you will get all the points. So this is another example. Here we have made a simple change. So the thing is that from default access, we have changed the access of J to private. So now it's private instead of default. I instance variable is having the default access that is public within the package, as we discussed already. There is one method set ij that is assigning the values to I and j instance variables of the class, and then we are extending this class A to another class B. So there is one member total and there is one method sum. Now the important point is, as we discussed, when we perform the inheritance, the public and the default members are get inherited into the subclass. So this is the default member, this will get inherited. This is the default member, this will get inherited. So these two will be accessible in the subclass, but this private member will not get inherited. So I'm going to show it here cross that this will not be available in the subclass. So J cannot be used directly into the subclass. So if you use J directly in the subclass, that will give you the error because this is not accessible. J is the private member. So if you want that any member of the class should not be accessible in the subclass, then you should make that member private. So this J is now private and this cannot be accessed, but I can be accessed directly because I is the default member, and when you inherit A into the class B, it will become the member of the class B, or it will be accessible through the subclass B. So here is the main. If you remove this line, so total here you can't find I plus j. So you can just assign the value of I to total. This you can do because this will not work. Then we are creating the main. So we are creating the subclass object. We through the subclass object we are accessing I and j, set ij. So this is beauty of this program. Let me show it diagrammatically over here. This is your object, right? And this object will have the members of the superclass I and j and member of its own, that is total. So this is the object of its superclass. So it has two members I and j. This will be available in the object, j will be available in the object, but it is private. It cannot be accessed through the subclass methods. This is the case only, and this is the member that the class B has added, and this member is total. So I'm going to write over here, this member name is total, right? And if you call set ij, because set ij is the default member, so it get inherited into the class B, and you can call it with the subclass object. So this we are calling with subclass object and passing x 10 and 20, I think so, to the x and y, 10 and 12 to x and y. So these are 10 and 12, and this will assign the value of x 10 to I and 12 to j. See, now the thing is, this j we are assigning the value, some value to the j, but this private member, this can be accessed through the methods of the superclass only. So we are assigning value to j, but through the method of the superclass set ij. Subclass cannot access j directly. This is the meaning of private. This is not get inherited into a. That means if in any subclass method you use j, that will give you the error because this method belongs to the superclass. So in j, in this method, j will be accessible. So we are assigning value to the j member through that superclass method set ij. Now this object is having the reference sub object. It's the name of the object. And after that, we are calling the sum method. Sum is its own method. If you remove this line from here, then you will get the value of I over here. If you want to add the value of j to I, in this case, you have to write one method over here that can give you the value of j. So you cannot use directly j over here, but through the superclass method, you can obtain the value of j. So if I want to add or find the sum of I and j, I will write one method in this class, and that method should be int, and then I can give it the name get j, and this method, when it is called, it should return the value of j. So here I will write return j. So if I write return j, it will give me the value of j. So here I can call this method get j, right? So instead of writing j, I can write over here get j, and this will give me the value of j because this is the superclass method. So it can give you the value of the j. So this will give you 12, and that will get stored in the variable total. So you will get total 22 in this case because 10 plus 12 is 22. So after that, we want to print the sum. So we are calling the sub dot total. So this will get executed sub dot total. So this is the name of the variable, and it is accessible directly. This total is accessible directly because this is the instance variable is having default access. So you can access total directly through the object of the subclass. So we are doing that over here. So you will get 22 in this case. So this is how the inheritance works. Let me show you the another example where we have added some more functionality to the superclass. So this time our superclasses works, and we have used this class a lot in the previous video lectures. So in this class, everything is clear to you. Still, I'm going to repeat some important points. So these are the instance variable, width, depth, and height. This is your constructor. So it's having object as a parameter. Then there is a parameterized constructor with 3 default parameters of type double. This is a non-parameterized constructor, and this one is a constructor with one parameter, and we have volume. So functionality I'm not going to explain because this is quite clear to you. Then this is our base class, and we are going to inherit it to create a new class. So we have created another class, box weight, and this class is extending the box class. So in the box class, all the instance variables are of type default, access default. So these will be directly accessible through the subclass object, or these will become the member of the subclass. And rest of the members are also default access members. So these, although the constructors are not inherited, this is another important point. Constructors of the class are not inherited into subclass. So this constructor will not inherit these four constructor. Only this will be inherited into the subclass. So there will be how many members will be there in the subclass? There will be uh, four instance variable, three that will be inherited from the superclass, and one has been added over here, that is the weight. So length and width, height, and depth, these are the three member, and fourth one is this. And this class has added its own constructor over here, a weighted box, and this constructor is of four parameters. So let's discuss from the main. This is the main. So in the main, we are creating the object of the subclass first. So this is the subclass object. I'm going to plot it over here. This is the object, and this object will have a superclass object and some of its own members. So this is the superclass object, and it will have three members: depth, width, and height. These are the members. And here we are calling the constructor with four parameters. So this will get called. So this W will get value 10, and H, D, and M will get 20, 15, and 34.3 respectively. So when the body of the constructor will be called, these values will be assigned to the instance variable. So the important point to note over here is that width is not the member of the weight box. It is inherited from the superclass. So we are using it directly over here because this get inherited into the subclass. So that is the reason. So these three are the members of the superclass, but these can be used in the methods including constructor of the subclass directly. So we are assigning 10, 20, and 15 to width, height, and depth, and 34.3 to the weight. So this is the weight member, and we are assigning 34.3 to the weight member. This is the case. So after this gets executed, the object will get one reference, and the reference is this my box 1. So this is my box 1, the reference of the object. And after that, the next line will be executed. So here we are creating another object through the same constructor call. So I'm not going to show you my box 2 over here. Then we are calling my box dot volume. So volume is basically is the method of the superclass, and it will get inherited into the subclass. So we can call it directly through the subclass object. So this is our subclass object, my box, and we are calling volume. So this volume will return width, height, and depth product. So you will get 10, 20, and 50, product of 10, 20, and 50, that is 3000. That will get stored in volume, and the next line will print the volume over here. And if you want to print the weight of the box, then you can use my box dot weight over here directly, because this is again the default member weight, and default access members can be accessed directly. So same is the code for the mybox2, so I'm not going to discuss this with you. So this is the important point. So here in this class, we haven't used the base class constructor. We haven't used these three base class constructor. Here we are in the derived class constructor. We are assigning value to the width, depth, and height. So instead of writing the new code, you can call the base class constructor to initialize width, depth, and height. So this is the redundant code, we can say. Over here we are assigning value to the width, depth, and height, but in the base class we have the code to assign the values, and that is this constructor. So it will be better if we in the subclass, instead of assigning the values, if we use the base class constructor to initialize these three members, that will be considered as a better code. So this we are going to do in the coming slides. So here's the another important point, and the thing is a superclass variable can reference a subclass object. So what is the meaning of this? This we are going to explain. The main two classes are the same, but the main of the previous two classes we have changed. So we are creating the mybox weight. This we discussed in the previous slide, and this will create the weight box class object as shown in the previous slide. So for your convenience, I'm going to draw it again on this slide as well. So this is my subclass object, and this subclass object will have a base class object in it. So these are the values of the three members, that is width, depth, and height, and this is the weight box weight attribute, and its value is 8.37. So this is the case, and the reference to this object is this name, weight box. So this is the reference, and the next line is creating the object of the box class. So this box class will have just three parameters. So these are the three parameters or instance variables of the box class. And here in this case, because the non-parameterized constructor is being called, so this will call the non-parameterized constructor of the class, this one, and width, height, and depth will initialize to -1, -1, and -1. So these three values are -1, -1, and -1, right? And the reference that this object will get is the plain box. So this is the reference to this object. After that, we are calling the volume with weight box with this object, and what you will get is the multiplication of these three members, 3, 5 into 7. So you will get the result 105, and that will get stored in the variable volume, and the next line will print the value of the volume, and then you will get the weight of the box, that is 8.37. This is what we discussed earlier. The important point starts from here. So this is the weighted box. So this is subclass object weighted box, and we are assigning it to plain box. The reference is of the superclass. So this is true, this is possible. You can assign a subclass object to a superclass reference. So this is reference to super. So what will happen now? This object reference will be assigned to another reference variable, plain box, right? So reference to this object will lost because we are changing the plain box variable. So this object will not be having any reference now after this line, and this object, subclass object, will have two references. One is the weight box that we already assigned to it, and after this line this object will get another reference, that is plain box. So this is the plain box. So this object is having two references now from this line onward. So with the next line is also important. With the superclass reference, you can call the method that belongs to superclass, because volume belongs to superclass, but this plain box is referring to the subclass object, and through this superclass reference we are calling the object of the superclass. So this plain box dot volume will call the superclass method. So it will call this method that get inherited into this class, right, that is there on the screen, and it will give you the product of the three members of the superclass. So you will get product of 3, 5 and 7 again over here, and this will print that. But if you use the weight member with the reference superclass reference, and this case it's not valid because the reference is of superclass, but the weight belongs to the subclass. Also this is referring to the subclass, but the important point in this case is if the subclass object is being referred by the superclass reference, then through the superclass reference you can access only the members that belongs to the superclass. So whatever members belongs to superclass, that can be called with plain box if the plain box is referring to the subclass object. But the subclass members, like here the weight of the box, cannot be accessed through plain box if it is referring to the subclass object. So that's why here we will not be able to access the subclass object. That I have written over here. The following statement is not valid, and it's commented over here also. So this will not be accessible through the superclass reference variable. So next comes the super keyword. So as we use this keyword in the classes and objects chapter, similarly in case of inheritance, you can use a superclass to refer to the methods or constructor or instance variables of the superclass. So as I have shown you in the previous example, that this code width, depth and height are basically, we have written this code in the constructor of the subclass, but this code is available in the superclass as well, and uh, the code is over here in the form of a constructor. So it's better if instead of writing the code again over here in the subclass, if we call the superclass constructor. How we can do that, that we are going to discuss in the with the keyword super. So if you look at the example over here, this is the same constructor of the derived class, as I have shown you in the previous slide. Here there was 3 statements. I have replaced that statement with super W H and D. So this super will call the superclass constructor, and the superclass of this weight box is box class. So that means it will call the parameterized constructor having 3 parameters of the superclass. So I repeat, if you use within the constructor of the subclass super and after that some parameters uh, in the parenthesis, then that will call the superclass constructor. Like here, it will call the constructor superclass constructor having 3 parameters. So here is the example again. So this is the box class, and this is the weighted box class. So in the weighted box class, we have here one constructor, and the constructor is basically receiving one object type parameter, and this line will call the superclass constructor. So which constructor it will call? That the constructor that can receive the object. So let's look at this. This constructor can receive the object, so that means the super OB will call this constructor of the superclass. Similarly, in the second constructor that is having 4 parameters, in this constructor we are calling the super constructor over here. So which constructor will be called over here? That receives 3 parameters. So that means this constructor will be called from the second constructor over here. So keep in mind, if you can observe this code, the very first line in the constructor in derived classes or in subclasses will be called to the superclass constructor. So very first line of the subclass constructor should be the call to the superclass constructor. So this is very important point. So that's why I have written over here the super OPH. So again, this is the constructor of the subclass, and this is non-parameterized constructor. And in this we are using super and then empty parenthesis. So this will call the non-parameterized constructor of the superclass. So in third case, this will get called. In the last, there are 2 parameters, and with one parameter we are calling the superclass constructor. So this will call this constructor. So through every constructor of the subclass, we are calling the constructor of the superclass using the super keyword. So this is the one use of keyword super, that super can be used to call the constructor of its superclass, and the constructor of superclass should be called to the superclass constructor should be the first line of the subclass constructor. So this is the important point. Then next, in the main part, in the super demo class, we are just creating the object. So let's go through the code line by line. So what will happen? So here we are calling the calling the constructor with 4 parameters. So this will create the object, and 10, 20, 15 and 30.4 will be passed on to these 4 parameters, and this constructor will in turn call the superclass constructor. That when the superclass constructor will be called, the very first 3 parameters of this that we received through the main, we are passing these 3 parameters to the superclass constructor over here. So this superclass constructor will initialize width, height and depth with W, H and D values of the variables. and after that the wait member will be initialized. So I'm not going to show it to you through the diagram because this is quite clear. So this is called to the superclass constructor only. So like this, all the constructors will be called that are shown over here. So if you are calling, I will give you the second example over here. This we are calling without parameter. So this constructor will be called uh, subclass constructor. This subclass constructor is in turn calling superclass constructor. So all the members of the superclass, that is width, height, and depth, will initialize to -1, and then the weight will be initialized to -1. So this call will initialize the all the four members to -1 that I have shown over here. This case, right? This will initialize to this. The rest of the calls are similar, so you can verify the calls yourself, or in case of any doubt you can write your doubt in the chat box and I will explain those steps by step. If you want to run this code into the Eclipse and want me to show you the outputs, then I can run this code in the Eclipse as well. Till now, if
This conference will now be recorded.
so in this class A, we have one method message, and through the message method we are printing message in method A, method of class A, right? This is one class, and if I inherit this class into another class, let's say this is my another code. Here I will change it to B extends A, and in this we have message B, let's say, and this is message A, and in the extended class we are gonna print this message in method of class B. Now the thing is that the doubt that you asked is we can create over here the superclass reference. So this reference is of superclass, so A, but on the right hand side we are creating the object of the derived class. So this is possible. You can assign derived class object reference to the base class, but through this you will be able to access only the superclass method. So you will be able to print the message A only. See, from here, from this diagram, it's showing only A, right? So only A is visible, only A message A can be printed because this reference belongs to the base class or to the superclass. Although the object in it is object it is referring to is derived class object, but because the reference is of superclass, so only the superclass functionality can be accessed. So you can call message A through it. I'm going to run it for you to show you the result. Let me check why it is giving this message. Semicolon. So there is some mistake over here. Over here also I left the semicolon. So if I run it again, let's check the result. See here, message of method of class A. If I try to call the method of subclass, it will not be possible. Look at this. This Eclipse is showing the message. If I go here, method B is undefined by the type A because the reference is of type A. So if you try to run it, it will not work. So if the reference is of superclass, then only the superclass functionality can be accessed, right? And although this superclass reference is referring to the subclass object.
This conference will now be recorded.
So in this slide, we are going to discuss the second use of the super keyword. I repeat, the first use that we discussed is the super can be used in the subclass or in the uh, in subclass constructor to call the superclass constructor, and the call to the superclass constructor should be the first line in the subclass constructor. The second use of super is if you want to refer to the superclass members, then you can use the super keyword. So for that, what we use is, the syntax is, first we use the keyword super, then dot, then member of the superclass. I repeat, member of the superclass, right? So with super, you can only refer the members of the superclass. The subclass members cannot be referred with the superclass keyword, because the current class or the subclass is referred by this keyword. So here is the example through which we are going to discuss this. So there is one class. In this class, we have just one instance variable I, and the methods are not there. And we are extending this class A and creating a new class out of it, B. So in B, we have another instance variable I. So the thing is, if we use the same variable name or same instance variable name in the subclass as well, then the subclass instance variable hides the superclass instance variable, because in the previous slides we discussed that whenever you inherit a superclass, the members of the uh, superclass becomes the member of the subclass. So this will get inherited into this. So there will be two I instance variable, why one will be of the subclass itself and other that is inherited from the superclass, right? But to access the superclass I, you have to use the super keyword with the variable that I'm going to show you here. This is from this, we are going to start our discussion from the main. So this will create the object of the subclass. So this will call this constructor. So the value of A will be 1 when this will be called, and value of B will be 2. Here is the object that I am going to show you diagrammatically to understand this concept better. So this is this. There is a superclass object in it. So this is superclass variable I, right? Both the I will be there, but how these I's can be accessed, that we are going to discuss. This is the subclass I, right? Two I's are there. One is inherited from the superclass, and the other one is inherited from other one belongs to the subclass itself. So see here, when the constructor will be called, the A and B will get the values 1 and 2, then this body will be executed. So in this body we want to assign value to both these I's. One I belongs to the superclass, so I am assigning here the value of A, that is 1, to I of superclass. So here we are using super dot I. So this I will get the value 1. And in the second line, we are assigning B to just I. So if you use I only, that means I of the current class, or we can say the current class is subclass B. So this I is this, right? So this will get the value 2. So I repeat, in this case, in this example, we are using the super keyword to refer to the superclass instance variable that are hidden, or you can use them, use the super even if the superclass and subclass are are not having the same instance variable name. That in that case also we can use this super keyword. Then after this object will get the reference that is shown on the right hand side, that is sub o. This will be the reference to this object. And next line is sub dot show. So this will call the show this method. So again here, if you want to print this I, you have to use super dot I. So this will print the I of the superclass, that its value is 1. And if you want to print the value of the I that belongs to this class, with the to which this show method belongs, so that will give you this the value of this I variable, and you will get 2 in this case. So this is the second use. The super can be used to access those members of the superclass which are hidden by the subclass instance variables. So the next example is about the hierarchical inheritance. In this we are going to discuss the multi-level inheritance, where one class will inherit the first class, and the third class will inherit the second class. So this is the case that we are going to discuss. There will be 3 classes. The one class will inherit from the first, and the third class will inherit from the second. So the subclass this will become the superclass for the third one. So in this example we have used the same superclass, that is box. So all the methods are clear to you. Some constructors are there and one method is there. This we have already discussed in detail. Then from the box class we are creating box weight class, and in this we have added one weight instance variable, and again some constructors are there, and in every constructor we are calling the superclass constructor. So when this super will be executed, it will call the box class constructor as we discussed earlier. So this box weight class, we are extending it further to create the third class, shipment. And in this shipment class, we have created one instance variable cost. So in here we have some constructor. If you use super, so this super will call the weight box class constructor. So this will call the weight box class constructor the immediate super class. So if I show you diagrammatically over here again, so this is our box class, this is our weight box class, and this is our shipment class. So if you use super over here in the last class, this will call the constructor of this class. If you use super in this class, it will call the constructor of this class. So for this class, superclass is this, and for this class, superclass is this. So in other words, we can say that if we use super in any method of a class, then that super will refers to the immediate superclass. So immediate superclass of shipment is weight box, and immediate superclass of weight box is box. So this is the case, and we'll start discussion from this main. I will show you just one part of this, right? Because we are creating 2 objects, so we'll discuss, or we will focus our discussion on the one object only. So here we are creating the constructor of shipment class, and we are passing 5 parameters to it. So here these 5 parameters will be passed on to the constructor. This is having 5 parameters, right? So these w, h, d, m, and c will get some values. The very first line, as we discussed earlier, from a subclass constructor will be a call to the superclass constructor. So we are calling from here the superclass constructor with 4 parameter W, H, D, M. So which constructor will be called? The constructor of the weight box class. So a constructor that receives 4 parameters is this, right? So this will be called. From this we are calling the super constructor with 3 parameters. So this will be called with 3 parameters. So first of all, its execution will this will be executed. Then after that, the rest of the part of the wait box constructor means this line will be executed, and after the completion of the wait box constructor, the rest of the part of the shipment constructor, that is this line, will be executed. So this will initialize the object with the values, and the control will return back to the main after the creation of the object. So here we will get the shipment 1 to the reference of the object that we just created. And with that object shipment 1, we are calling the volume method. So volume method is not there in this class, right? Because this class is inheriting the box. So box volume is in the supermost class. So this here we have volume. So because we are inheriting box to weight box, so this volume method will be inherited to first the weight box class, and then from weight box to the shipment class. So this volume method will become the member of the shipment class. So we can access it directly from the shipment class object, right? So that's why we are calling it with volume. So this volume basically belongs to the box class, because box is inherited into the weight box, and weight box is inherited into the shipment class. So this volume will be accessible from the object of the shipment class. The main thing that you should remember is uh, only the default members or the public members of the base class will be accessible in the subclass, right? This is the main thing. So I think you got it right. If there is any doubt regarding this problem, again, you can ask your questions in the chat box.
This conference will now be recorded.
So in this example, we have 3 classes, and in every class we has one constructor, non-parameterized constructor. So in class A, this is the non-parameterized constructor, and when it will be called, it will print this message inside a constructor. We extended the A class, and the subclass in this case is B, and in B we have one constructor, and this constructor when executed will print inside constructor B. And similarly we are creating class C from class B using the inheritance, and in C class constructor we are printing this message inside C constructor. So again, there are 3 classes. I'm going to show you this. So this is class A, this is class B, and this is class C, right? We are inheriting B from A and C from B. So this is the hierarchy, and this is the case of multi-level inheritance. So we are creating one object of C class in the main. So this is the object. So when the object is created, constructor gets called automatically. So the problem over here is in what order these constructors will be called. This is the main case I'm going to discuss with you over here. So this is the scenario. This is the reference to C class object. In C, we have object of B class, and in B we have object of A class. So whenever you create the object of a subclass, automatically that object will have the object of its superclass. So this C class object will have two objects inside it. So this is B class object and this is C class, A class object. So whenever you create the object of any subclass and there are only the let's say non-parameterized constructor only, as in this case. So this basically, as we discussed in the previous examples, this will call the subclass constructor, right? This one. But the subclass constructor, with before executing its body, it will implicitly call its base class constructor. And this base class constructor, without executing its body, it implicitly call its superclass constructor. So first of all, in this scenario, the constructor of A will run. Then after the completion of the A class constructor, the constructor of B class will execute. And after the completion of the B class constructor, the constructor of C class will run. So you will get the message in this order: A class constructor, B class constructor, C class constructor. This is the result you will get. And if we look at this diagram, it's clear from this diagram also, if you want to create the object of C, you should have the object of B class. And to create the object of B class, you should have the object of A class. So that means the first of all, the A class object will be created, innermost object by the Java. So when the inner class object will be created first, the innermost object, the constructor of A will be called. After the completion of A, the object of B can be created only. So then the B class constructor will be called. And after the completion of the construction of a B class object, then only the C class object can be built. That means then the C class constructor will be called. So it's clear from this diagram as well, because the C class object is containing the B class and A class object. That means those two class constructors will be called first, then only the C class constructor will be called. So this concept is called constructor chaining. In this case, the subclass constructor automatically calls the superclass constructor. And so the next slide about the concept that you asked doubts earlier about this. So in this case, we will have two methods, and one in the subclass, and that subclass method will be having the same signature as that of its superclass. So in this example, we have here one method show, right? This method belongs to the class B, and this class is extending class A. So this is the superclass, and this class is also having the show method. So in Java, if we write a method in the subclass whose name and the type of the arguments is same as that of the superclass method, then that is called method overriding. So method overriding means is a concept where we will have a method in the subclass, and that method will have same signature. Same signature means its name will be same as that of the superclass method name, and its type of arguments will also be same as of its superclass. So because in the superclass we have a show method, so in the subclass also we have a show method. This method don't have any parameter, Subclass method also don't have any parameter. That means this method of subclass is overriding the method of the superclass. So why we do this? The first important point is we do overriding when we want to hide the definition of the superclass method. So I repeat, when we need that the superclass method should be hidden. That means if you call the method show with the subclass object, then subclass show should be called, then show of the superclass should not be called. So in that case, we perform the method overriding. So I repeat, whenever you want that the particular definition of the superclass should be overridden by the subclass method, we perform the method overriding. So let's discuss how this will work. So in class A, we have two instance variable I and j. There is one constructor that is initializing I and j instance variables, and one show method that is printing values of I and j. In the subclass B, we have variable k, one constructor that is initializing value k and calling the superclass constructor, and one show method over here. So I will show you this step by step with the diagram. So we are creating the object of the subclass over here with the right hand side. I will show you this on this page only. So this is the subclass object, and in this subclass object we will have object of the superclass, and in the superclass object we will have two variables I and j. This is I and j, and this is the instance variable of subclass, that is k, and this object name is sub ob. This is sub ob, right? And this constructor call is passing the values 1 2 3 to abc. So ab is 1, c is, this is 3, this is 2, this is 1. When this will be executed, it is calling its superclass constructor. So the value of a will be passed on to this a. This is local variable of a, is the local variable of the subclass, superclass, sorry. The value of b will be 2 in this case. These ab and these two ab are different. We are assigning through this the value of a, that is 1 to variable I. So this will get initialized to 1, the I value. B will the value of b will be assigned to the variable j through the next line. So this will get the value to this instance variable, and after the completion of this, the control will go to the next line. So you are assigning this c value to k, so this will get 3. This is what we discussed earlier also. Then the next line is important. We are performing show over here, subject.show, and there are two show methods. See, one will be inherited from this class to this class, because the subclass is having its own show method. So this show method will override the show method of the superclass. So whenever you will call show, this show will be called if you are calling with the subclass object. Because we are calling show method with the subclass object, so this show will call the subclass show, and you will get the value of k only, that is 3. So this will be the output of this program. If you have any